When I was younger and I thought about retirement, I had this picture in my head that was probably way more polished than reality. I thought retirement was this finish line where everything just clicked into place. The stress would disappear, the days would feel lighter, and somehow life would slow down in the best possible way. And I'll be honest with you, some parts of retirement really are great. But there are a lot of things I seriously overestimated, and nobody really talks about them until you're already there. And I don't want you to have to learn these the hard way like I did, so let's jump in. One of the first things I overestimated was how relaxed I'd feel right away. I assumed the moment I stopped working, I'd wake up calm, refreshed, and grateful every single morning. What actually happened was the opposite for a while. My mind didn't get the memo that work was over. I still woke up early. I still felt that low-level tension. And without a schedule, that tension didn't have anywhere productive to go. It took time to unwind, much more time than I expected. Retirement doesn't flip a switch. It slowly turns dimmer. And if you're not prepared for that, it can feel unsettling at first. I also overestimated how busy I'd naturally stay. I used to say things like, I don't know how I'll ever have time for all the things I want to do. I truly believed my calendar would fill itself. But work fills your time whether you like it or not. Retirement doesn't. You have to be intentional. And that was a surprise to me. Days can stretch longer than you expect, especially in the beginning. And if you don't make some kind of loose plan, it's very easy for weeks to blur together in a way that doesn't feel productive or even restful. Another thing I overestimated was how clear my sense of purpose would be. For decades, work gave me structure and identity, whether I realized it or not. People asked what I did, and I had an answer. I contributed. I solved problems. When that went away, there was a quiet question underneath everything. So what now? That question doesn't mean you made a mistake by retiring. It just means you're human. Purpose doesn't automatically replace itself. You have to rebuild it, and that takes thought and patience. I also thought I'd instantly feel accomplished. I worked hard, I saved, I planned, I earned retirement. And while all of that is true, the feeling of accomplishment didn't stick around the way I expected. There's something about no longer having milestones, deadlines, or external validation that can mess with your head a little. You can start wondering if you're doing enough, even when enough no longer has the same meaning. That internal shift caught me off guard. I overestimated how easy it would be to manage my time. I figured more free time meant better time management. But what I learned is that too much open space can actually make time management harder. When everything is optional, nothing feels urgent. You tell yourself you'll get to it tomorrow, and suddenly tomorrow has been happening for 6 months. Structure isn't the enemy. In retirement, it's actually one of your best friends.
I also overestimated how much energy I'd have every day. I thought without work stress, I'd feel physically better all the time. And while some things did improve, energy still comes and goes. Aging is real. Some days you wake up ready to go, and other days you don't. Retirement doesn't freeze you at the age you stop working. It just gives you more flexibility to listen to your body. And that adjustment took me longer than I expected. Another thing I really overestimated was how much money stress would disappear. I didn't expect to be worried all the time, but I did think finances would feel settled. What I learned is that money concerns don't vanish. They change shape. Instead of worrying about income, you worry about longevity. Instead of raises, you think about inflation. Even if you planned well, it takes time to trust the plan. That mental adjustment is real, and it's normal. I also thought I'd spend a lot less time thinking about work. I figured once I walked away, that chapter would close neatly. But habits are powerful. Your brain has been trained for decades to solve problems, respond to pressure, and measure progress. That doesn't just shut off. You might replay old decisions or think about how you would have handled things differently. Over time, it fades, but at first, it's surprisingly present. I also overestimated how socially connected I'd feel. Work provides built-in interaction, even if you don't love every minute of it. Once that's gone, your social world can shrink faster than you expect. Friends are busy, schedules don't line up, and if you're not proactive, loneliness can creep in quietly. Retirement gives you freedom, but it also requires more effort to stay connected. I also thought hobbies would instantly fill the gap. I had a list: reading, walking, learning new things, projects around the house, and I do enjoy those things, but they didn't automatically give me the same sense of engagement I expected. Hobbies are great, but they don't replace meaning on their own. They work best when they're tied to something bigger, whether that's learning, contributing, or connecting with others. Another thing I overestimated was how patient I'd be with myself. I assumed I'd be kinder, slower, more forgiving. But habits don't disappear just because your job does. I still had moments where I felt frustrated for no good reason. I still expected myself to do something useful. Retirement isn't about becoming a different person overnight. It's about gradually becoming more aware of who you already are. I also overestimated how much retirement would simplify life. In some ways it does, but in other ways it adds new layers. You make more decisions yourself. You manage your own structure. You think more about health, time, and priorities. Simpler doesn't always mean easier, and that distinction matters. One of the bigger surprises for me was overestimating how confident I'd feel about my decisions. Even after careful planning, doubts still show up. You wonder if you retired too early or too late. You question spending money you saved for years. You second-guess choices that felt obvious before. Confidence grows with experience, but it's not automatic. I also overestimated how quickly I'd adjust emotionally. Retirement is a transition, even when it's voluntary. There's a little bit of grief mixed in with the freedom. You're letting go of a version of yourself, and that deserves acknowledgement. Ignoring that part doesn't make it go away, it just makes it louder.
Another thing I didn't expect was how often I'd compare my retirement to other people's. Someone else seems busier, happier, more fulfilled. Comparison doesn't stop just because you stop working. You have to consciously let it go, or it'll steal the joy right out of your days. I also overestimated how much clarity I'd have about the future. I thought retirement meant fewer unknowns. In reality, it's just a different set of unknowns. Health, family, finances, purpose, all still evolving. The key difference is you have more control over how you respond to them. Picking up where we left off, another thing I really overestimated was how much motivation I'd naturally have. I assumed once I was free from obligations, motivation would just show up on its own. But motivation doesn't work that way. It usually follows action, not the other way around. In retirement, nobody is pushing you, nobody is waiting on you, and without realizing it, you can start waiting to feel motivated before you do anything. That can turn into a long wait. What I learned is that small routines matter more than big bursts of inspiration. I also overestimated how much retirement would improve every relationship. I thought more time automatically meant better connections, but time doesn't fix things by itself. In some cases, it exposes them. When you're suddenly around your spouse or family much more than before, patterns you didn't notice can show up fast. Retirement can strengthen relationships, but it can also require more communication and adjustment than people expect. Another thing I overestimated was how comfortable I'd be saying no. I figured without work, I'd have clearer boundaries. Ironically, the opposite happened at first. Because my time felt open, I felt pressure to be available, to help, to show up, to fill the space. It took a while to realize that retirement doesn't mean your time is less valuable. In many ways, it's more valuable. Learning to protect it is a skill. I also overestimated how much adventurous I'd be. I imagined traveling more, trying new things, saying yes to experiences. Some of that happened, but not at the pace I imagined. Comfort is powerful, and after years of routine, it's easy to carry that same cautious mindset into retirement. Adventure doesn't automatically arrive with free time. You still have to choose it. I thought I'd worry less overall. That was a big one. I assumed fewer responsibilities meant fewer worries, but worries don't disappear, they shift. Health becomes louder. Time feels more finite. You start thinking in different horizons. The trick isn't eliminating worry, it's learning which worries deserve your attention and which ones don't. I also overestimated how much external validation I wouldn't need anymore. I told myself I was done caring what people thought. But when compliments, promotions, and professional recognition disappear, you notice it, not because you're weak, but because you're human. It takes time to replace external validation with internal satisfaction, and that transition is quieter than I expected.
Another surprise was how much discipline still matters. I thought discipline was mostly a work thing. Deadlines, meetings, accountability. In retirement, discipline becomes personal. Sleep habits, exercise, spending, screen time. Without structure, small habits can drift, and drift adds up faster than you think. I also overestimated how finished I'd feel, like I had arrived. Retirement sounded like the final chapter. What I've learned is that it's not an ending, it's a redesign. You're still growing, still adjusting, still learning what matters now versus what mattered before. That mindset shift was bigger than I expected. I thought I'd feel more content doing nothing, and sometimes I do. But doing nothing all the time feels different than it sounds. Rest is powerful when it's intentional. When it's accidental, it can turn into restlessness. There's a balance there that takes practice. I overestimated how little my identity was tied to productivity. Even when you tell yourself you're more than your work, years of conditioning don't vanish overnight. There were moments where I felt uneasy simply because I hadn't earned the day. That feeling fades, but it doesn't disappear instantly. I also overestimated how easy it would be to spend money I saved. This one surprised me. Even with a plan, spending after decades of saving can feel uncomfortable. You hesitate, you second guess, you wonder if you should wait. Learning to enjoy what you planned for takes emotional adjustment, not just financial readiness. Another thing I didn't expect was how much reflection retirement brings. When things slow down, your thoughts get louder. You think about past decisions, relationships, regrets, and wins. That reflection can be healthy, but it can also pull you backward if you let it. Learning to reflect without dwelling is an important skill. I also overestimated how much younger I'd feel mentally. In some ways, retirement makes you feel lighter. In other ways, it makes you more aware of time passing. Both can exist at the same time. That duality takes getting used to. I thought I'd be less affected by small inconveniences. No rush, no deadlines, right? But sometimes, without bigger challenges, small annoyances feel bigger. Perspective doesn't automatically scale with free time. You have to actively maintain it.